making contact, and we'll catch you next week. Oh yeah, well, piss off, Billy. Just be that way.
We got a, someone's watching a Facebook stream of it, says, in the scenario of having a commercially oriented permaculture system where the main source of income is produce, what would be the minimum land surface for it to be financially viable?
Oh man,
people do it. People do it on a quarter acre. I mean, it just depends on.
No, yeah. I mean, okay. You've seen the Wheaton ECO Scale. Did we look at the Wheaton ECO?
We haven't on this.
Yeah,
show.
it depends. See, there's Eric there saying it depends, but it's kind of like I kind of feel like the question is wrong. I want to take a hammer to the question, and because it's kind of like that's a level 2, and I want to take people up to level 5, but you know, if I talk about level 5, it seems crazy, and so yeah, here's the Wheaton ECO Scale. And Olaf made this graphic. I did not make the graphic. The graphic is awesome. What an amazing, cool graphic. Yeah. And this has been so useful. So the first thing I want to emphasize is that, because you just said quarter acre, and I kind of feel like, yeah, you can do it on a quarter of an acre, but you got to have massive inputs. You're bringing all this organic matter in from us, and I want people to not do that. Please don't do that.
It depends.
Well, we're back to it depends.
Full of people doing that on quarter acres are doing different things. It works.
The next thing is that so many people start focusing on, like, I'm going to sell all this food, and I kind of feel like in permaculture systems, feed yourself first, and then, you know, you can sell the excess, or you can sell or give away or whatever you want to do, but you know, have excess after you feed yourself. Then people kind of get this mentality of like, I want to do permaculture and I'm going to grow permaculture food, and then I want to like sell it for a price that's lower than what Safeway is selling it for.
Not going to happen.
And I kind of feel like that's okay to like build a market. Like, I'll sell you this food for less than Safeway, but you gotta give me your email address, and don't give me a shit email address either. You know, and build your marketing is the idea. And it's kind of like, okay, I can understand that, but for the most part, it's like their whole design from the very beginning is like, I wish that I could work 16 hours a day and earn 20 cents an hour for all my effort. That would be the best. And I kind of feel like I think that a permaculture food grown on an aged soil in polyculture, where it's like the soil is minimally disturbed for the harvest, that's like super food. It's like, this stuff can cure cancer kind of food. Not only that, but it's like, you go and you talk to your vegans, and it's like, hey, vegans, I mean, they care so much. And, you know, tip of my hat to all vegans everywhere, giving up bacon for the betterment of the world, and you know, lots of other reasons. But the thing is like, okay, I want to eat vegan. A lot of vegans, not everyone, but a lot of them. It's like, I'm going to give up eating bacon because I don't want a creature with a face to get killed in order to feed me. And then, of course, I think, which is noble, that is awesome. That is so cool. And if you've ever harvested an animal on your own, that right there is, you know, I think you quickly learn, like, I've decided to be a vegan. All right. We got that. That's cool. But then when you go out and you buy this organic food that's, you know, for your vegan diet, a lot of little fuzzy creatures got killed during the harvest, you know, because this big machinery came through and just destroyed everything. And it killed birds and geese and voles and all kinds of creatures that were living there, and they all got squished. And and in fact, that's the book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, kind of goes into that whole thing of like, okay, how many little critters got squished for the vegan diet, and how many little critters got squished on the omnivore's diet?
Yep.
And then it's like, okay, if we're counting souls here, is it the number of souls, or is it like, because if you kill a cow, that's fewer souls, but there's a lot of meals in that one soul. So maybe the size of the soul matters.
It's all the cuteness of the soul. It's all about the cuteness of the soul.
Well, I think each vegan's going to have a different story.
Yeah.
And then I kind of think, okay, look, you grew this permaculture food, and you harvested it in such a way that no little furry creatures died or birds died or anything like that during the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's so huge, and it's an aged soil. Organic fields, they plow them 3 times a year to try to minimize the total weeds, and they've got massive inputs. So I think that a huge part of it is like, make people aware of that, and then say like, I've got food that wasn't harvested that way. So rather than like, I'm going to grow some carrots, and when it comes to price, I'm going to compete with Safeway. So rather than playing it that way, I think what's good is the whole idea of like, let's let people know about how you harvested this, and try and sell it to them at a higher price, because it's a premium product.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the way to do it is hunt for your meat, grow your food or raise your meat, and then the excess from that, then start selling, and then build it up from there. That's the way you gotta do it. You gotta take care of yourself first, and then start building.
So how many acres do you need? And that's the question is like the minimum. And I think the big thing you got to keep in mind is that, like, let's feed 3 people and you've got 6 acres. Then it's like the amount of work you're going to put in is very, very tiny. But if you try to feed 3 people on 1 acre, you're going to have to do a lot more work.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the equation is like, how many acres do you have? The other thing is that, and this was the conclusion that I came to back in 2005. I want to do all the things. I want systems that feed systems that feed systems. And I learned I cannot do it by myself. And then, of course, as I was talking about earlier, I want to go back to the day where I'm taking my PDC, and I want to live like that all day long, every day for the rest of my life. So community is a factor. And so there's some of that. And then there's the whole idea of like, if you eat beef, then like the minimum size of the acreage should be minimum of 80, preferably 200 acres. And so it's like, okay, so 12 to 20 people sharing a plot of land, and all working together without stabbing each other, being all people-y and human-y and stuff, and all the drama that might come with it. So we got to solve this people living together issue. And then it's like, okay, what's your minimum number of acres? And well, if you're feeding 12 to 20 people, you got to figure, like, to make it easy, it's an acre per person. And you can do that relatively easily. I think that if you go much larger than that, it doesn't too much of a difference. But then, of course, there's the whole thing about doing the paddock shift system with the cattle, and that adds some acreage to the system. I mean, and then there's the whole concept of like, are you just going to provide salad greens to 200 people, or are you going to provide diet? That's a radically different thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, when it's it's 1 person per acre, that's the whole diet for a whole year. And that's, you know, some pretty intensive systems. You know, but with minimal amount of work. The next thing is that when you've got large acreage, you tend to approach it in a different fashion. And so you got to kind of ramp up. You're gonna be like, permaculture systems for a quarter of an acre. Too often people get onto a bunch of acreage and they want to do it all for the whole acreage, and it's like, oh, that's too much. You're not going to do it. And then the other thing is, a lot of people are like, I'm going to make this enormous compost pile and I'm going to mulch with nothing but the best homemade compost. And it's kind of like, if you're on a quarter acre, you can do that, and that you can make that dream come true. And it's beautiful. It makes an amazing garden. But when you've got 80 acres, it's like, oh, you're not going to do that. No, let it go. Let it go. Try to add a quarter of an acre every year, or maybe if it's multiple people, maybe you can add an acre every year or something like that.
Well, I think it's good to design, if you have 80 acres, design the whole 80 acres. So at least the large scale design stuff, the earthwork stuff, have that as a design, and then intensively work on 1 acre at a time, or whatever manageable amount you can. I wouldn't, more than 5 is ridiculous. Really 1 acre at a time is a good way to go. So you have your full design, you piece it into 1 acre chunks, and you focus on each acre at a time, making those successful. Because the smaller the area you're working in, the more intensive of a design you do. And the more you're paying attention to what that piece of land needs.
Do your earthworks first. Oh man, it's always so sad to see level 2 people so enthusiastic about gardening, and they're doing so much, and they're planting their canes and they're planting their trees, but they haven't done their earthworks. And so
and they have to go in and trash it all.
Yeah. Oh man, that is just so sad.
Yeah.
Now Eric has posted something about exotic mushrooms, and it's like it's true. If you're trying to just make coin, wow, morel mushrooms, you get a lot of money for that stuff. So, but yeah, mushrooms generally bring in some of the top dollar, and then those mushrooms generally, I don't know if they're for sale at Safeway or not. But you're getting more per pound.
What's nice is you walk into grocery stores now, and they're definitely getting smarter. They're understanding that they need to start providing a lot more local foods, because that's where the market is. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to compete with whatever store box B.
That's another thing too, is if you're trying to sell food at the farmer's market, or sell food to a grocery store, which then resells it to the consumer, I think that's not a great strategy. It is kind of your level 2 strategy, and I'd much rather see something that's level 5 or 6 strategy. And at level 5 or level 6, it's going to be, level 10 is what Sepp Holzer does. Take a good look at what that guy's doing. And he's not selling food because,
he's not allowed to be.
The government wants to get all involved. They want to put their hands up your skirts and stuff like that. But of course, their whole policy is like, you don't want to eat that. It came out of the dirt. They'd rather sell you Coca-Cola. That's good. That's good nutrition there. It's safe. It came out of a factory. We know every speck of what's in that. And it's like, and for some people, that's what they like. They like the idea of something that's like, oh, I only want to eat things that came out of a factory. And I think that there gets to be a day when people have some horrible illness or cancer or something like that, and it's like, maybe I'm going to try eating better for a while, and maybe that'll make a difference. All I'm saying is, like, when you're trying to make money, when you're thinking about making money, and I've got a whole 2-hour presentation about how to make the big bucks with permaculture. It's kind of like, rather than trying to come up with a plan for poverty, try to make a plan for like getting a professional wage. And I kind of think like, okay, think about like a professional wage is $100,000 a year. You know, and granted, you could say a professional wage is $60,000 a year or something like that. But why not shoot for $100,000 or $200,000 a year? So then you start thinking like, okay, then how much money per hour does that work out to be? And now, now everything you do is got to be like, okay, if I follow that path, I make minimum wage, which is less than $50 an hour, which is $50 an hour. If my math is correct, that's $100,000 a year. And so then it's like, okay, everything you do should be something where you're going to end up with $50 an hour or better. And it might take some time to build your market and get to that $100,000 a year. But I think it's good to be looking at like the stuff about the mushrooms is a good one. You could be earning $50 an hour harvesting mushrooms.
Yeah, which is.
And then the next one is going to be like, well, Sepp Holzer, he just charges people to enter his property, and then he turns them loose, and then they harvest their own food. So you're like, oh, a U-pick operation. No, it's very much not a U-pick operation. It's very much it's a tour, and it doesn't sell food at all. They just take it on the way out. Because if you were to sell food, then that falls under all kinds of regulations and stuff, and that's a pain in the ass.
You encourage theft.
But then,
I like it when people steal.
But what about the idea of having a yurt on your property, and people come and they do staycation, glamping, something like that, and then you're like, oh, and you guys can help yourselves to all this food that's here. Or you could even say like, okay, you come and you pay this much money and whatever, and we'll cook you food. We'll cook you some really awesome permaculture food. Now you find that you're getting, $50 an hour for your time and your food and stuff like that. You're doing much better. I think that kind of mentality should be, the place to think more. Now, all right, so then the question was, what's the minimum number of acres to be able to, do a market garden for a certain number of people or something like that? And so you can kind of see how I'm kind of thinking like, no, I wanna, hit the question with the hammer. I want to smack it and bust it up and like, no, let's ask different questions than that, rather than like getting married to poverty for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and it's also going to depend on your environment. I mean, there's a lot of factors in how many acres you're getting. The other big thing to think about when you're doing this is distribution, because distribution can be a big pain in the ass. Have you ever heard of Local Orbit?
No.
Okay, so there's this lady, it's a company, or it's a software company, and Erica Block is who runs it. And did I break up on you?
Internet or my internet that's gone to shit? You were gone. You were gone there for a bit.
Yeah, I can tell when it happens. So it's Erica Block who's running this company, and she's awesome. And what this thing is she sets up food hubs. Okay, so this software is for the farmer and the hub, and it integrates the two where, let's say a grocery store or a restaurant says, I need 10 pounds of morel mushrooms. Well, you can provide 2 pounds of morel mushrooms. So you can't sell to that restaurant because you don't have enough. And so what Local Orbit does is it facilitates that by saying, okay, I got 20 vendors that have mushrooms for sale. You say you need 10 pounds. Here they are, from 2 pounds from this one, 2 pounds from this one. It's like, and it's very centric in what kind of food you're getting and what kind of farms these are and what kind of produce you're going to get from them. It's really cool. And if you're going to get into selling food like that for making money, definitely look into some food hubs and what kind of software they're using, because it makes a huge difference. Okay.
All right. Did we answer that question well enough?
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for putting up the Wheaton ECO Scale.
Yeah, you done with that? I'm looking at level 8 here. That's going nuts. 9, you got a community. Yep.
So at 9, there's only 10 people because it's a reverse logarithmic scale. You can only have 10 people at level 9. And so I think I picked 6, and then Olaf added 4 more. And but the key is, of course, so at level 9 there's 10. At level 8 there's 100 people, and at level 7 there's 1,000 people. This is the eco scale. There's been a few different people that have taken the Wheaton ECO Scale, and they've come up. They've said they've called it the Wheaton ECO Scale, but they've added like some other element to it, like Jacob Fisker out at Early Retirement Extreme. He's used it for early retirement extreme stuff.
That guy's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, you recommended that book to me years ago, and I read it, and it changed my life. Good book.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help people get out of the city and be able to get onto acres and do permaculture with other permaculture people who are bonkers about permaculture. And I think that stuff like Early Retirement Extreme or Mortgage Free by Rob Roy, these are powerful tools that help you get out. And then, of course, the thing I advocate is residual income streams, which I think we talked a little bit about in the last episode.
Yeah. I want to see, what I would really like to see is a solid community plan that is proven to work, because I think where I would really like to see all these city people going is to communities and permaculture communities. And so that's what I really want to see is a plan, a method of community that is proven to work. And so the only variable that can really fuck it up, or the major variable that could fuck it up, is those people that you're choosing to be in the community or leading the community or whatever. That's what I really want to see, because I think that is a city person that just moves to the middle of nowhere usually moves the fuck back to the city because it's just not working out for them where you are.
Any person that moves to the middle of nowhere, and then it cut out.
Oh, any person that moves to the middle of nowhere is moving back to the city. Eventually, most people.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think community is the cure to that. Having strong communities.
I think so. I mean, out here in the country, you see a lot of people where it's like they'll have a couple of horses, or they might have a garden, but they don't. It's rare to see somebody who's got a garden to feed everybody and a lot of different animals. And then a lot of times it's like, I was out in the country and I had a big garden and I had a lot of animals, but it wasn't enough. I mean, I'm trying to do a bunch of other things. I mean, to try to add in the whole concept of having a milk cow and then like adding milking in the middle of everything. And it's like, well, I want to have the raw milk, but I'm already overwhelmed and I don't want to take on any more responsibilities. And so how do I get this to all pan out? I mean, it's that kind of thing where suddenly you start to think like, okay, it needs to be a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's a lot harder to get everybody in a neighborhood that has nothing to do with permaculture into it so that you're sharing those resources. You can do it, but it's hard. It's a lot, or I wouldn't say it's easier, but I would like it more if it was a planned community where people are thinking, everybody in that community is thinking that way. Like, what are you going to provide? Because I'm going to provide something else so that we can share. We can trade with each other and have these things without having me doing all the shit, because that's just going to make me fucking die or go away. Come on.
2 or 3 guys that are working their asses off, and then you got a bunch of other people that are like not so much. And so then you're saying trade, and it's like, yeah, trade. And it's like, I like the idea of having a few people where it's like it's all based on trade and stuff, and they don't do a lot. And that's cool. That's totally awesome. And it's like somehow you've grown food, and so you've got your own food. That's cool. You don't need to trade. You don't need to be a part of the rest of the system. Your role here is very tiny, and that's fine. And then there's some other people where it's like, man, they get a lot done. They're loaded to the gills with stuff to trade. Mm-hmm. And so then there's that. And of course, the best way to trade anything is like with monies. But you could barter if you want. But I kind of think that the human element, those buckets of crazy, that's the thing. That's the biggest thing is we solve. I mean, when we talk about intentional community, that you could have a podcast dedicated to nothing but intentional community, and I think that you'd go 10 years of daily podcasts, and you're still just scratching the surface.
Yeah, and I think that'd be awesome, and it's needed. There's a niche to be filled. What came to mind just now was a great person to be in a community is the guy with the mill. The guy with the mill is going to get a lot of trading done.
Like the sawmill, or you mean? Okay, all right, yeah. I've got an electric sawmill, and it's solar. It's got a big solar setup.
Wow.
Well, when you get down here, I'll show it to you. I'll point at it. Look, there it is. See it? Right there. Like that.
Cool. I'm excited for it. Gotta have a pretty big battery bank, huh?
Well, yeah, it's got a 3,000 watt, solar array. Mm-hmm. And then of course, on a sunny day, on a long sunny day, you're going to get a lot more wood cut.
Well, is it going into a battery bank? And then
yeah, there is a battery bank. Yeah. All right, man, we've been at this for 2 hours.
Yeah. Shit, I still got stuff to say.
Well, fortunately, there will be another Tuesday next week.
There will be. All right. Number 10, Sepp Holzer, the man, the myth, the legend.
And we look at number 10, and some days I kind of think that maybe Willie Smits should be at number 10. But Willie Smits the tropical guy, and I'm a cold climate guy. So I think I'm